Yeah, hello and welcome to a new episode of our weekly Spielworxx chat, season 2. My name is Uli Blennemann and I'm having designer David Turczi as my guest today. David, how are you?
Hi, it's good to be here. Thank you very much for having me. It's a
Yeah.
very busy day today for me.
Yes, and we will get to that in a second. So I'm really glad that you made it today. So thanks a lot. And for the viewers, if you have questions or comments, please put them in the chat window, and David may even respond. But we are starting with two quick Spielworxx news items. And The Smoky Valley by Claude Sirois will be available for pre-order on September 30, so that's Thursday, so 2 days from now. It will be available from my website and via Spieleschmiede crowdfunding here in Germany. And in the US, the game will be available via the BGG store. So 2 days from now, the Smoky Valley pre-order, and I will send out a newsletter. There will be much more info on my website. Second, Conworks 2, so takes place this Friday and Saturday. And please check out the program, and it's 18 hours of live streaming on Friday afternoon and all of Saturday. And I'll put the URL in here. So that is Conworks if you are interested in it. Yeah, but now back to you, David. Please tell us a little bit about yourself first. Where are you living? Why are you living in that place right now? And what are you doing for a living, David?
Well, that's a lot of questions. I'll try to reply to them all in 2 sentences. I'm David. Most people know me as the designer of Anachrony or Tekenu or hopefully soon Voidfall. And I am from Hungary, but I live in the Netherlands. I moved here a little over a year and a half ago. In pursuit of a wonderful lady who Norali, who since co-designed at least one game with me, so definitely a good move. And yeah, and I have a crazy day today because the next game, Voidfall from Mindclash Games, is launching on Kickstarter in about 15 minutes or so. So,
Yeah, so
average
really,
Tuesday.
so really a crazy and busy day, and that's why I'm so glad that David is here, and because he mentioned it already. So let me put in the Kickstarter link in here. So let me see if I manage this, and this game will be available in 11 minutes from now on Kickstarter. So please check it out. And this is actually the topic for today. So we are talking about, mainly David, about Voidfall, which is a science fiction game from Mindclash games. So David, what is Voidfall?
Voidfall is the brainchild of my frequent collaborator Nigel Buckle. He and I did Imperium Classics and Legends
Yes.
from Osprey Games earlier this year. What's common between both games is that he's been pursuing the dream for quite a while, and it all turned up to 11 when I came along and I said, oh my god, I love the stuff you do, let's do it even better, let's do it even more. And with Imperium, he and I spent years after the game was finished and already great to make it even greater, which is how we ended up with the 16 civilizations some of you have been enjoying. And with Voidfall, what happened was that Nigel had a game published, I want to say in 2012 or 13 or 14, so like a couple of years ago, called Omega Centauri by Spyro Galaxy, which is the UK shop and the distributor, but with a fairly limited international reach. And I've played that game, and I've said that this is the greatest Space Empire Builder game I've ever played. Why do nobody ever heard about it?
I played
And
it. I played it.
okay, I'd be curious to think what you think, but it was definitely right up my alley. The production had a few mistakes. The rulebook was
Yeah.
less than desirable, but those were all problems that semi first time designer Nigel couldn't have solved by himself, and the publishers failed attempts. I refuse to hold it against him. So I was like, hey Nigel, how about we sit down and think about the core idea of Omega Centauri and bring it kicking and screaming into the 21st century. And I pitched this idea to Victor Peter, the head game developer and CEO of Mindclash Games and the designer of Turczi and Cerebria, and worked with me, and I worked with him on Anachrony and Perseverance, so close working relations. And he was like, "Ooh, space game, that's interesting. What can we do to this market that Eclipse and Twilight Imperium hasn't done before?"
Yes.
And I said, we can do something that's absolutely nothing like either of those games.
Yeah, and this would be my follow-up question, because we all know that this is a crowded market. One thing. But this, of course, is no reason to not do another game there.
That's a very interesting question, because if you compare it to other markets, people like you and I move comfortably at ease, ancient civilization themed Euro action point allowance games, that market is a lot more crowded.
Absolutely.
It's just that market has you can do something interesting in tiny details, and the audience of that market appreciates the tiny details, while the audience of big space empire builders, and not just the space empire builders in general, big empire builders, but space specifically, they are about the broad stroke experience, the experience with a capital E, or in their case, a capital E and an X.
Yeah.
So a space empire builder is very much about the ideas and not about the execution. Whereas, and especially because two games so wiped the floor with the market, and for some people group Forbidden Stars to this genre as well, and if you do, then there are 3 games that wiped the market of this. But it's because there have been many space empire builders that all tried to do the kind of the same thing that Eclipse and or the Twilight Imperium did, but hey, we don't like this bit, so we'll do that better. We don't like this bit, we'll do that slightly better. But starting from Omega Centauri, which was already a hard left turn compared to Eclipse, and I was jokingly calling it the anti-Eclipse back then. But then as we went through Mindclash's rigorous integration, as I always say, that where other publishers say that it's good to great and we can start publishing it, is where Mindclash starts considering to publish the game in a few years. Mm-hmm. And it's because it's not enough to be a good game, it's not enough to look good as a product, but everything has to make sense. Everything has to make sense both thematically and mechanically. And because in the past, they've done it with big, super heavy games, and today's market trends are moving away from the super heavy games.
You think so? You think so? Is it really true? You think so? So I'm not sure. So I would like to hear your opinion.
If an 18xx newbie started today, or if Turczi was coming out as the next Mindclash game, I would be worried for how many people would delve in to appreciate all the depth. Mm-hmm. And therefore it's not enough to make a smart game. It's not enough to make a unique game. It's not enough to make a smart and unique game with a great theme, and a great theme that makes sense with the mechanisms, but we also have to do it as streamlined as possible. Yes. Because Baroque as a game design is so 2012 that
yeah, I agree, David. So I'm still not 100% sure, because there's a large group of players who have now 5 or 6, 8 years gaming under their belt who still want more. But looking at me, so of course this is not a scientific probe to talk about me, I'm feeling that I am looking more and more towards the games that you are mentioning. So somewhat more tighter games, more streamlined, who are not simulating every little detail. Of course, there are always exceptions, but I think you are correct. Also, yeah, we probably do not know. But I interrupted you, so please go on.
No. This is an interesting discussion, because this is not a scientific thing, and I appreciate, oh my god, all the choices make sense as the next guy. I mean, I have designed Tawantinsuyu after all, but what we've set out here is to make a space empire builder that feels like a space empire builder, using the same tight, meaningful Euro mechanisms that Anachrony, Perseverance, and to a greater degree Tricarion have all attempted in the past, but to do it on somebody else's turf. Or designing Anachrony, designing Perseverance, we do whatever we want because it's our genre, it's thematic worker placement, we define the rules. But today we're fighting on the space 4X genre, where people are like, this is not a 4X game, you can't do this because you're not flipping a hex, you're not rolling 3 dice to figure out who wins the battle. And we're like, we don't care about the definition. Our job is to make the best game that feels most like a space empire builder to us.
Yeah.
And we are not here to convince you that this game is better than Twilight Imperium, because I think the game is absolutely nothing like Twilight Imperium.
Which of course is the right and smart decision. But here in the chat, first, hello Matt, there's designer Matt Wolf here, and he's making a comment on the heavy games, so heavy complex games. He's saying you watch how many backers Weather Machine by Vital Lacerda gets when it launches on Kickstarter.
Well, tell me about it, because
how popular heavy games are.
I hope I'll add a few backers to that, because guess who designed the solo mode for Weather Machine?
David is very busy with solo machines, but I wanted to comment on this for a second. Sorry to interrupt you again, David.
I'm very happy to comment on that because remember I said that if Tricarion started today, I would be worried. But because Tricarion came out 8 years ago, and Mindclash got where it is, and then Anachrony exploded even further, and that put me on the map and gave me the leeway to design simple little games like Tawantinsuyu or Defense of Procyon 3, that Vital Lacerda can do it, like Mindclash can do it, like I can do it, like you can do it. Come on, the Spielworxx does some of the, on the classic Euro market, some of the heavier end, because the hardcore audience has already had the exposure to appreciate us.
Yeah,
but if we want to expand our market, then we can't always raise the gates high.
Yeah, and I agree, and I think, Matt, that Vital is very special here, and he has his audience, and I think what David said earlier, this Baroque description is very fitting. Vital does Baroque games. We have
and Weather Machine is a particularly great Baroque design.
Yeah, and he has his lovers, but sometimes for quite a few people it is a little bit too much. So Voidfall is something that is completely different. Is it? So you are saying it's 4X, but it's not 4X, right? Because it doesn't have these hexes.
It feels like a 4X, but it doesn't have the trapping, doesn't have the motions of a 4X. What do you do in a 4X game? What you do in a 4X game is you start from a slightly asymmetric corner of the world, then new input is given to you in the form of exploring a map. Then you customize your strategy in the form of expanding onto that map and building buildings and deploying soldiers. And then you exploit the empire you've done in the form of getting more production, deploying troops faster, and then finally you exterminate whatever opposition you're facing by marching the output of your empire in their face, and then depending on how you customize your strategy plus a little bit of luck, you get an output.
Yeah.
And we said, that's fine. We will give you all of these feelings, but through none of the motions of all the 4X games. We have a slightly asymmetric corner of the galaxy you start out from, and we do expose you a bit of random offering to to seed your strategy by, but it's not an uneven hex flip, because all the hexes are face up, and the input randomness is the agenda market, which we lay out at the beginning of the game for all players to see and try and find overlaps in. And then the expand is absolutely there. The exploit is mostly there, but translated to a Eurogamer's how many resources can I produce in X actions. And then the exterminate is taken to a higher stand. The question isn't, am I gonna win? The question is, do I have the reach to invest more into warfare? And do you know what game modeled this logic extremely amazingly? Through the Ages.
Yeah.
Through the Ages said that it's not about who wins the battles, it's about who can afford to invest most into combat, and that person will win every time. And that's what we did. And because Through the Ages has battle all at the end and no map, and we have this beautiful map, and we didn't want to just leave all the fighting to the end, therefore it made sense to have this neutral enemy on the middle of the board. So most of the fighting, most of the extermination you do is actually part of your expansion. It is fighting the neutral enemy, which in Nigel's original concept was a corrupt ancient empire. And in Mindclash's beautiful world building, we translated into the Voidborn, the enemy from another dimension who came and took over the human empire.
Two comments here. So first, because you mentioned once or twice that it has a beautiful game board map. Yes, please check out on BGG, now on Kickstarter as well. The graphics, it's Ian O'Toole, and it's really looking fantastic. So wonderful graphics again by Ian O'Toole, although people know he's probably Wayne Rooney. Have you ever seen Wayne Rooney and Ian O'Toole in the same room? Check this out. I think I'm correct there. So really beautiful graphics. Second, did I understand this correctly, that in Voidfall you don't explore in a way, you explore, but you can see everything that is right at the start. Why did you do this? For simplicity, or what are the reasons?
For strategic fairness. Through the Ages comes into its bloom when especially if you play with only the base game, where there's very little card variance in the gold cards, when it's assumed that every player knows every card that's coming, and then you create your strategy saying, I'll let this building pass, but I'll draft that other one once it comes. And it's like you customize it, and then you tactically adopt it based on what silver cards you draw. But Eclipse, and I am not dissing it, I'm just saying which parts we decided not to try and follow and outdo. Eclipse says you're gonna flip a hex, and then you're gonna adapt your economy to the hex you flip. But there is such a thing as good hex, there is such a thing as bad hex, and even if they're all reasonably balanced, there is such a thing as shortage, that you just don't flip a hex that produces pink. And we said, if that's not meaningful, then why bother? And if it is meaningful, then do you really want to lose because you never flip the pink?
Yeah, interesting.
So we said that the emotional intention of exploration in the 4X genre is to make you think up a new strategy every time you sit down to play. This is what you and I in Eurogames, we do by content replayability. We say in Tekkenu, you pick your strategy based on the starting cards on the market. In Anachrony, your factions scoring and the endgame objectives influence it in a way. But in Voidfall, we said, we need to have that feeling of let's explore the strategy we can do, but it shouldn't be influenced by an in-game random variance that affects players differently. Instead, what we do is we shuffle the agenda decks, we reveal 3 agendas in the current rule set, and we say, go. And then what I do, or people who play even better than I do, is that you look at the galactic event that rewards you for something. You look at the agendas that rewards you for something. You look at the technology offer, which is there's 8 technologies in game, but there are 26 in the box. So every game is a different combination. And you say, okay, that card rewards me for this building, and that card also rewards me for this building, and that technology lets me build that building easier. So if I could get 2 of those 3 things, I have a strategy. But to play that game, I am short of that other resource. So along the way, I should probably build the building that makes that resource. And suddenly I have a strategy. And next game, if there's a different tech on offer, if I'm playing a different house, or if the agenda deck just shuffled a different card, then I won't see this connection. I will see a completely different connection. And all of us are sitting there. All of us have a different starting agenda, a different starting resource. The map has a minimum. The starting map doesn't, but the later maps have a tiny asymmetry of called the Fallen House, a bonus card that is not exactly equivalent for all of us. And you look at all these inputs. And you look at all these inputs like it was a Vital Lacerda game or like it was a Daniel Tascini game, and you create a strategy. And then you execute that strategy. And somewhere along that strategy, you will fly your ships from one hex to another, and early game fight the Voidborn, and late game, you will be presented with this choice. I could score 30 points by keep attacking the Voidborn, or I could score 10 points, take 10 points away from you, and slow you down by attacking you. And that's an interesting choice, but it's even interesting what you're thinking is, will I slow you down or will I go for the more points instead? And based on that, you will either do the most efficient thing to score the most victory points, which is, in Through the Ages term, build another theater. Of course, here it's credit guilds and agendas and whatnot. Or you're going to put down a sector defense, or in Through the Ages term, build another warrior. So that's the
Yeah, this is fascinating. I'm constantly thinking here while you were talking about it, and I have to briefly say hello to game designer Nick Case. Good seeing you. David, are you saying that the agenda card? So each player has an agenda card, correct? And
each player has a starting agenda, yes.
okay, but they are also open information. So they are shuffled, or is it only known what is your agenda to yourself?
Each player has one starting agenda which is custom to their house, and even their house has 2 and they have to pick.
Okay.
And then there's a bunch of common agendas.
Yes.
And those common agendas are shuffled and put on a market.
Okay.
And if somebody buys a card from the market, it's refilled. But it's quite hard to buy an agenda. You buy like 4, maybe 5 agendas in the entire game. Some people only buy 2 or 3. So you look at the 3 starting agendas on the table and you go, well, if I only get one chance to buy one of these, which one would I want to buy? And then once I buy it, I want to score the maximum out of it, so I should start building towards that even before I buy it, but I should check the other players to see if they're also building towards it, because if they are, I might need to rejuggle my plan and buy it a turn earlier, because otherwise they might buy that agenda. So it's highly interactive, but not in the I push 20 ships into your hex and start shaking my dice kind of interactive, or the I play a card that says screw you kind of interactive. No, it's interactive in the way Through the Ages is interactive. It's interactive in the way any heavy Italian Euro would be interactive, of what will you possibly do on my next turn, and how badly will it screw me if you take the card I want, these sort of things. So, and all of this with the thematic integration of what you get to expect from Mindclash. And to me, that is the holy trifecta there. So I have poured, and Naja has poured both of our lives into it for the past, we've been working on it for 4 years, but the past year or so has been
very busy.
At least 1 session per week, sometimes more. So, we live and we breathe it. And if anybody wants to disagree with any of the philosophies on the basis of, I wish it was the other one, then I'll say, okay. If anybody wants to argue it on the implementation merits, then hit me up. I can talk about that endlessly, because I am betting everything on this.
It will work out, I'm sure. One question I'm having, because as I said, I played Omega Centauri, I think it was the
Yeah.
name, and it had deterministic combat.
Yeah,
So,
the core of Voidfall's combat is exactly the same as Omega Centauri's combat. We just evolved it a little bit.
oops, sorry. Although this is live, I have to answer the phone. Please continue talking. Yeah, I'll be back.
All right. Um, Another thing that differentiates it from the Space 4X games is that has a solo and a co-op mode, because there are many other interactions in the game besides attacking other players. Therefore, we can create a threat, a pressure, which almost creates this Spirit
So,
Island level feel.
so Asmodee is
One more reason
sold,
to check
and
it out.
I just said that that was Asmodee, and now Goldman Sachs asking, but I said I confirmed Spielworxx is not buying Asmodee, so
Well,
I
I would
don't.
have happily chipped in for like 20 or 30%. The two of us could have run Asmodee like that.
Yeah, but getting back to, sorry for this, but I have to keep the line open because my wife is on the road, and if something really terrible would happen and I would not be able to answer the phone, so that I would never forget myself. So that is the reason for this, that somebody can call at this time when I'm live. So deterministic combat. So what was the reason for for keeping this? So why are you having deterministic combat in Voidfall, David?
Because you wouldn't ask, why is there deterministic combat in Tolkien?
Right, right.
This is a mindset problem. This is not a mechanical problem. Uh, People expect empire builders to be running through the motion and then setting up a climatic battle and some exciting combos that they collected along the way, and then you fire it all off and there's explosions and you maybe win. But
Yeah.
we said that's not what strategy gaming is about. Strategy gaming is about biting your nails on your second action, and on your second turn wanting to do every action possible already, almost being able to, but you have to pick one.
Yeah.
And when the whole game is building up, and every choice is nail-bitingly hard in a good way, the heavy Euro smart good way, then how would you feel if after that you had to roll a die to see if you win or lose?
Yeah, I think it's correct. I agree, and it's one
Think
thing
of it as a
first.
bidding.
Yeah,
It's
but
not combat, it's bidding. If
yeah,
I put 5 ships next to your hex, you have to ask yourself, is it worth for me to put 6 ships next on that same hex to hold it? Is it worth it for me to actively run away to have my 3 ships somewhere else? Or should I just leave my 3 ships there and let you decide whether you want to waste an action to bring us both down?
yeah, I agree on this, and I have 2 points on this. First, if you look at one of the granddaddies of civilization games, so Civilization by Francis Tresham, or Advanced Civilization, this game had deterministic combat, and especially because it was also fitting in a long game. You don't want to have another 1 or 2 hours rolling dice and having or looking up CRTs, combat results tables, to determine combat. So I totally get it. Contrapoint at this moment would be is emotions, maybe, and I would couple this with flipping hexes in Eclipse,
Yeah,
because you are saying, and rightfully so, that it may be unfair, but of course it's a great moment if I flip the correct hex, or if you have 5 ships and I have because I again played so poorly, I have just 2 ships, but I continue rolling sixes, so it may still work out. So are you missing on emotions here, or what is the thinking?
honestly, probably. But what we've always said with Mindclash is we don't have to put things into the game that make you have those emotions. We want the game to make you feel the actual choices you're making. And since Voidfall is on the extremely grand level, like, one token is a few 100,000 people building ships, then the choices have to feel appropriate at that grand level. When I move 3 of my yellow cubes over to your hex, I have sent millions and millions of ships over to your solar system. You know, it's at that point, it's not a farm boy flying down the coolant vent. It's Napoleon times a million. So it's you don't get bad weather. You don't use the force at that point. You see who's more prepared, who has the better supply lines. The army rolls on its stomach. It's if I could feed more people into your sector, then bye.
No. I get this completely. I have to look into the chat because there were a couple of comments here. So first, Matt, this brute said, "Well, who still uses a landline?" Yeah, me. I'm an analog dinosaur. You know this. And so, but there's first a very nice comment. The Beckonist is saying, quotable, strategy gaming is biting your nails on your second action, David Turczi. So that is quotable. But he's also having a great question here. How does the solo mode in Voidfall function? Is it bot-like or something else?
This was something we talked about for months. We decided not to try and simulate an opponent because Voidfall is interactive on the sublime. It's not interactive on the I place my worker where you gonna place yours. So there is no obvious denial. It's interactive on the, oh, I see that over the next 3 turns you're gonna turn that way, so I'm gonna turn this way so I get there slightly before you. And the bot could never simulate that. So instead, because the theme and the setting handed us the cooperative story that before we can divide this fallen dominium up amongst ourselves, we have to first stop the invading force that fell the dominium. And that's what the co-op game is about. And the co-op game uses the exact same mechanisms. You take the exact same actions, you use the exact same combat, just never against each other, always against the Voidborn. But the Voidborn uses a crisis card system where every turn you get a new problem to deal with, and if you don't deal with it, then eventually it will attack you, and you will start losing sectors. And once we had a co-op game, then it's a matter of balancing and scaling. So the solo game will be a one-player co-op. Essentially, like I compared the thinking patterns of the competitive game to Through the Ages. Do I build theaters or do I build warriors? Do I improve my agenda scoring or do I put down more sector defenses and more fleets? I prefer to liken the competitive and the cooperative and thus the solo version to Spirit Island. It's like, sure, I can go and shoot the Voidborn on any one place, and sure, I can do my mission and get rewarded for it, but I have to do that while managing this wall that's about to collapse onto me. And if I let it collapse, it's an immediate defeat. So the solo works by making a great co-op game, and then we're balancing it, and we haven't stopped balancing it. We're still gonna work a few months on it down to one player as well. So I would advise, instead of people to look for the next Eclipse and the next the Twilight Imperium, I hope people would be looking for the next Through the Ages and the next Spirit Island here.
Yeah, people will wait for this, and they will be very interested. Some basics here, David. Player count is 1 to 4 in the game?
Yes. The
1 to
competitive
4?
is 2 to 4, the cooperative is 1 to 4.
And roughly playing time is 2 hours for the full game?
I would say it's about an hour per player. That's the like, maybe your first game will be longer, but once you know what you're doing, plus we're working on player aids and icon summary and all that jazz, once all of that is in place, we are confident that it's going to be at or under an hour per player.
Oh, that's good, and that is different from Eclipse or Twilight Imperium for sure.
Yes, because it competes with heavy euros. It doesn't compete with player-to-player freewheeling nearly diplomacy-style games with a lot of combat.
And when do you think will the game be released? So when will it hit the market?
Well, you can check the Kickstarter because it launched
Today?
20 minutes ago, and it's almost funded. Let me refresh faster. Maybe it is already funded. And the Kickstarter page will tell you that we're promising delivery Q1 2023.
Okay, so you're still in as you said in final development and doing
Yes.
stuff, but this is good because I thought it's 22, but first quarter 23 it's out. And
I mean,
David,
look at the world today. At this point, anybody promising to finish a game, produce it, and ship it in a couple of months is lying to themselves.
yeah,
So we'd rather not lie to people or ourselves.
no, that's absolutely correct. And Nick is also making a good comment here. He's saying, "Did I imagine it? But is heavy cardboard do a playthrough soon?" Yes, I think it's
Yes,
even
I think
today.
late tonight.
Yeah,
Yes.
it's at
And Paul
US
Gruden
time.
of Gaming Rules already did one, and One Stop Co-op is doing one of the co-op mode, and Before You Play did a summary of it, and Shay from Rado Runs Through also did a preview of it. So we are trying to cover all our bases.
Yeah, and so Nick, you're correct here. And so, what else can we expect from you as a designer, David, in the near future?
Um, uh, uh, I don't have any more new games coming out this year because Voidfall pretty much ate all my time. But I do have an expansion for Tekkenu, Time of Seth. I think it's gonna be available at Essen, but I'm not 100% certain. It's co-designed with Daniel Tascini and myself, and dice drafting and rotating obelisks and cool stuff. So if you're into classic Italian Euros, then you'll love that. Besides that, I have a few Kickstarters from last year that's gonna ship in a few months. The Roman Roll expansion and Defense of Procyon 3 and Excavation Earth just had an expansion a month ago. Besides that, I'm gonna have a bunch of solo modes for some pretty hefty titles over the next month and a half. So immediately after Voidfall, I think Lords of Ragnarok from Awakened Realms launches first. That's a solo mode I'm still working on. And soon after, Vitala Serda's Weather Machine launches, which I've already finished the solo mode for. And then there's one more later in the year that I'm forgetting. And then next year with Mindclash, we're going to have the second part of the Perseverance series, episode 3 and 4. And then I have a bunch of other games that haven't yet been announced. I have just finished designing a crunchy, heavy, half brass, half barrage style game with Simone Luciani. So we're talking to some publishers and see which year we can get that out. You know, I do it
Yeah,
for a living, so I never stop. I'll stop when I drop dead.
yeah, yeah. Well, so you, as people see, David will be busy, and
And we're funded.
yeah, and you got a congratulations. Your Voidfall funded here. Congrats from the Okabenist and AI Gasgea is saying he pledged or they pledged just now. Looks awesome and right around
Thank
my
you very much.
valley. So wonderful. David, it was a pleasure. I know you're busy. You will head over to the Kickstarter page immediately, but how can people best reach you if they want to get in touch?
I am obsessively reading everything about my games on BGG. I am taggable on Facebook and Reddit on all the appropriate groups. I occasionally even reply to Geek Mail, although I prefer if people don't do that too much.
Yeah.
Or just come and say hi to me. Hopefully, conventions will be a thing going forward again. I will be at Essenspiel, my first convention in 2 years. Please don't cancel it. Um, you know,
Yeah, it will happen at this point. How Essen will, nobody knows at this moment, but it will happen, I'm pretty sure. And the O'Baconish, he pledged as well. So he's saying, thank you for your time, David. So, and I'm saying the same thing here. And please remember, 2 days from now, Smoky Valley pre-order is starting. Remember, on Friday and Saturday, there is Conworks. And next week, I will have another guest. It is designer Dan Bullock, and he will present his game No Motherland Without North Korea in Crisis and Cold War from Compass Games. And David, again, thank you for your time. Viewers, thank you for your time. If you would like to see a special topic discussed, have a question that you'd like to ask in advance, please drop me a mail at uli@spielworxx.de. That is uli@spielworxx.de. And till next week, bleibt alle gesund, Black Lives Matter. Bye bye. Bye.
Bye.